Welcome back to Women of the League Producers Cut podcast, a podcast designed to take you behind the scenes of Women of the League Season 1. Let's dive into Episode 5, where the talent talked about entrepreneurship and finding their identity. Welcome back to Women of the League Producers Cut podcast, where we continue to take you behind the scenes of Women of the League. We're going to dive into Episode 5 today. I am your host, Mitch Gerber. That phone buzz was Michael Calvin Jones, Hannah Jones to the right, and then we've got Santino Cincato and our special guest appearing on Episode 5 and 6, Bailey Drum. Okay, so last two episodes of Season 1 of Women of the League. Episode 5, topics were entrepreneurship, passions, finding the identity, or finding their identity rather, some deep dialect between the women up on set. But what was kind of your biggest takeaway? We'll start with you, Santino, from Episode 5.
So Episode 5 was probably one of my favorite episodes coming off the set.
It's because I wasn't in the war room.
It's because Mike wasn't in the war room. No, but I think it was one of my favorites. It was really great to hear the women speak to the different passion areas they had. Yeah, so it was really cool to hear about all their different endeavors and what they're trying to chase. I think that's what makes a lot of us tick, and you can tell that a lot of them have had some, variance in their self-identity, and you can tell that by them diving deeper into these passions and building these entities out, that it's helped them find that.
If you guys can't tell, behind the scenes, the last two episodes, or the first 4 episodes, I should say, there was all the set and stuff like that. It's all cleaned up now.
Yep.
So this is what it normally looks like on set, but this is the true behind the scenes. Everything's back in place. Crew's out of town. The women are out of town. And we're stuck here on the islands.
Yeah,
Formosa Beach.
I think everyone's on a plane home.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Mike, you were here for a good portion of episode number 5 before you had to run to some other meetings. But I believe at that point in time, they were kind of talking about their entrepreneurial spirits and the different businesses and backgrounds that they've dove into. Was there anything that stuck out to you or surprised you during those conversations?
No, I mean, it's cool to hear what they're interested in and what they're passionate about. And, I think one thing that's a challenge, if you look at it through the lens of, they really only have the outlet of doing their passions through an entrepreneurial lens, right? So like I always talk about, entrepreneurship is not easy. It takes a certain type of personality. It takes a certain type of trait to be somebody that can, run their own schedule, build a business, handle that type of ecosystem. But in their situations, they're almost forced to have to kind of do it that way. It's not like they're not going to go get like a normal, necessarily W-2 employed job, right? So they have to find a way to kind of probably make up for some of the weaknesses that they may have not being a true entrepreneur, or maybe they are. It just depends. But it was interesting to hear how they look at building a business, finding their passions, and all of them on that table are doing it in some form or fashion, which is cool.
Yeah, and I thought another really cool thing was, I think sometimes, going back to kind of misconceptions, women in general who maybe have a husband, not just in the NFL, but maybe who has a high profile, high paying job, sometimes women, their wives, girlfriends, fiancés, could be looked at as they don't have any skill. Like they're a professional girlfriend in a way, or a professional wife, whatever it is. So I think it was really cool to hear them kind of talk about like their actual skill, like where their skills lie. Like Allie's like an amazing interior designer. Like Whitney is like has that entrepreneurial spirit and is launching a business here soon. Kristen's a model. Like Kim completely runs her household completely from beginning to end. So like I think their skills really showed. And again, like going against that misconception that, I'm just a professional wife, I'm a professional girlfriend kind of thing.
Definitely. It's cool too because you guys at this couch have the perspective for Allie, Isaac, and then Whitney and Dalton, them being talent members of J1S, and seeing them build their businesses from the ground up with the Margot, and then Whitney with her jewelry line and everything that's entailed. So I thought it was super cool, and there was one common theme of the off season, when the off season hits, all of a sudden the guys are back in the picture and be like, well, why can't you hang out with me? And they're like, well, wait a second. No, because you can't. I still got to work. Like, I'm doing my job. I'm running my business.
Exactly.
That's cool. Yeah, that was definitely cool. Bailey, how about you?
I really like the part of like them talking about finding themselves, because I can kind of resonate with that because I'm younger, coming out of college. I was just like, wow, these girls go through the same problems that I did, and I'm still figuring out. And I'm like, they're getting up there in front of like the camera and like talking about it, so making it like more normalized, and just kind of made me feel like, wow, these people go through the same thing I do. So I really enjoyed that part.
Yes, very relatable. And I think even people that aren't even as young as you are, Bailey, I think like it's so relatable because, gosh, sometimes, I mean, I have conversations with Michael all the time, like, gosh, like, what do I really want to do? Like, I know we're doing J1S right now, and like it's great and it's super fulfilling, but like I even think about like down the road, like what do I want to do something else, like, you know, for more long term. So I mean, it's super relatable across the board.
Yeah, I think like it is interesting, and people like yourself, there's such a moment of pressure coming out of college that you have to have this understanding of exactly what you want to do, and you know, that's just not the case. It takes a lot of time to figure that out. Majority of people, when they come out, they don't really know exactly what it is. And even if they do think they know what it is, they get in, they start doing it, and they realize like, this isn't what I thought it was. And then you have to redo the whole process over again. And so it's not an easy thing, and our society doesn't discuss the length of time that it takes to find what you're passionate about and how happy it can make you once you actually find it.
How do you think the conversations that took place, like when talking about identity and talking about finding their purpose, and I thought it was a really good topic of conversation in general, but how do you think those conversations will come off to the viewers as they've now consumed episode 5, or how do you hope rather that it comes off to them, and the reality of it takes a lot of trial and error to find that identity?
Well, I think the thing that I hope, and this is a theme throughout it, is that money does not always just mean happiness. And happiness a lot of times is actually defined by finding your purpose in life, finding your calling. And money is never going to be something that allows you to find that, right? Like, money can be helpful in situations to get access to different areas and maybe expedite the process of finding it, but it doesn't find it for you. And so I think when we think of the NFL, we tend to only look at the money and the big money factors of the entertainment world. But the reality is that's not going to be what makes somebody happy. Like, when you talk to people that are extraordinarily successful or wealthy, and you ask them like, what do they enjoy most? I can promise you, I've never had any of them be like, it's my bank account, right? Like it's oh, I love being a business owner. I love being in VC space. Like they speak about what they do and not what they've achieved.
Kristen talked about her new swimsuit line coming out and how it's designed for specific body designs, and you can alter it to each individual that you are. And I thought it was really powerful, and wondering if you agree, just powerful about the fact that somebody like that, who is the fiance to Jared Goff, is still grinding away trying to find her purpose in the modeling industry.
Yeah, and we even talked about it a little bit last night after dinner, just with Kristen. Her, like, the modeling industry is actually really tough, like just mentally tough for like all the men and women that do it. And with Kristen, she's been so successful in it. And so you look at her, and we were even saying today, we're like Kristen is just a stunning human being. And like, you would look at her and say, oh my gosh, she has everything figured out. She has everything she ever wanted. But like, that doesn't mean she doesn't, need fulfillment from other things, not just her success within, the modeling space and being absolutely stunning. So, and I think it's awesome that she has this new swim line coming out too. That's, kind of all inclusive to sizes and stuff like that. Because she said she struggled with, stuff like that with her weight, in the modeling industry as well. So just a super inspirational, way that she looks at things. So I think she's a great kind of role model to kind of look at in that way.
Yeah, you get these opportunities when they're offset and behind the cameras and the cameras are off. The goal of the show is obviously to be, as much of a behind the scenes as you can get, but as I'm sure everyone understands, people are still going to hold back a little bit. And so there was that, we were going between I think you were actually in the car then too, when we were driving between the main property that they were staying at and set. and discussing. I mean, she started at 9 years old,
Yeah, crazy.
and it's just she's been exposed to it for so long, 20 years, that it you kind of have to look back and you start to be and somewhat trained to just think this is normal. And then you start to realize when you get older, like, no, that's not normal and that's not how the industry should be. And while she's really grateful for the industry, it's cool that she's finding a way to use her passion skill sets to start a clothing or a swim line that maybe speaks to some of the struggles that she had when she was a child or when she was going through modeling in the early parts of her career and before the society of what it is today, is more open to multiple body sizes and things like that.
Speaking of driving and going back and forth between the property, Bailey was the MVP of driving. She drove the talent back and forth multiple different times. I'm just curious, like, take us behind the scenes of just being in the car and being able to consume some of those conversations. And what I thought was cool about you is you also put yourself in the conversation and you were able to relate to them.
Yeah, because they asked. Like, it was so cool. I felt like I was just like in a group, like a car with some like friends. Like, they made it feel like they were all friends, and then asking me questions. I'm like, this is crazy. I'm literally like a 24-year-old who's like, my job is to like drive them back and forth, and they're like interested in my life and stuff like that. And it's also cool to like see how they like debriefed every single episode. They're like, what did you think about this? And they were like, you need to talk about this on your TikTok, like giving each other advice and stuff. It was just really cool, like, side to see of them and seeing them together, like really close, like literally. And yeah, it was a fun time.
We had to speak to that, we had 2 SUVs lined up, pretty much any time for them to be able to go between the properties and get around. And every single time they chose to all get into one SUV.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
right. Like, it wasn't, I mean, there's 2 SUVs so that 2 and 2 could get in, and nope.
They were like, I'll get in the back. We'll pile in, stuff like that. Allie sat in the front with me every time. Like, it was just a good time.
I was saying this morning when we dropped those rental cars off that what's super powerful about this show is now when these teams play each other, that they're now friends. Like, they get to hang out together on the road or go visit each other, and it's not just some stranger, but this is like bonded them for life.
Yeah, because they were literally talking about, I think we're playing you guys in a few weeks.
Yeah.
Like, let's go get dinner after or before and stuff like that. So, because I want to say, was it Whitney and Kim? I think the Broncos and the Jets are about to play each other.
Yeah, and Kristen and Kim too.
Yeah, and Kristen and Kim.
It's wild.
Super cool.
Power of women of the league.
Power of women of the league.